Thanks for joining me today. This is the Simply Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. This is season number 4, episode number 14. My guest today is Harriett Alfred, who I have known for, more than 20 years. She's a teacher in a local school system, inner city school system, and I think she's going to be a wonderful guest. We put this together rather quickly, so I don't think she's had time to think about what she's gotten herself into, but I expect we'll have a very nice discussion. Thanks for spending some time with me here today, Harriett.
Oh, you're welcome, Chris. Anytime.
So you think we met sometime in the early 90s, so it's well more than 20 years, right? Maybe 93, 94, 92, something like that?
Yeah, it's been a few decades. Yeah, we've known each other a long time. So for a while there, I lost contact with you, and we even resurfaced. So, yeah, we're real good.
That's right. And you are a public school teacher, and you have been your entire career. We're going to talk about some of that. It is an inner school district you work in, right?
Correct, New Haven Public School.
And that, I imagine, presents some challenges, which I'd like to touch on a bit. Although I do love New Haven, having lived there for a number of years. But maybe we could start. You are not retired yet. You're closing in on retirement. I don't think I'm supposed to ask a woman how old they are, especially when we're recording this. But
right?
Let's just say you're fast approaching retirement age. Is that good?
I am. I have 30-plus years already under my belt.
And so
it's getting close.
So you grew up in Indiana, right?
I grew up in Steel Mill City, Gary, Indiana. Yes, I did.
And so
unfortunately, it's not much left there, but when I was there, it was happening because of the steel mill, and, everybody was coming up there for the wonderful job opportunities because of the industrial, opportunities with the mills and the factories and so forth. But, history tells us what's happened to those now. So.
Sure. And I don't think Gary, Indiana, not that I've ever been there, but I don't think it's ever really recovered.
Not at all, unfortunately.
So in Indiana, growing up as a young woman, did you grow up in a wealthy family, poor, middle class? How would you describe it?
No, I would say we weren't. It's funny because I didn't consider myself poor because my mother made sure I had everything I needed, but we were far from wealthy. And probably the lower middle, not even, if we were taken out of Gary and put somewhere, because Gary's cost of living was so low. If we moved out and if she had the same income that she was making in Gary and moved somewhere like here, with much higher income, we would have been probably considered poor, for real. But it was a single family household. My mother also was a teacher. And in Gary, you had a lot of teachers in Gary, You either worked in the steel mill or you were a teacher pretty much in Gary. That's what the higher job opportunities were in those two areas. So, like I said, I had a single family. I was the only child, single family household. But I managed to survive.
Yes, you certainly have. And would you say, and I know you lost your mom, maybe 6 years ago now?
2013, yes.
So would you say you've achieved the American dream with the job you have had and the success you've had in building some wealth over time? Would you describe it that way?
Well, I think yes, being that I'm pretty self-sufficient, I did a lot of listening to my seniors and people that had much more experience than me, took good advice, made some good choices in terms of how to manage my money. So if I had to answer that, I'd say I think I did pretty well. There's some things probably along the way I may have changed.
Right.
But, like I probably wouldn't have waited so late to buy a house.
Right. Because you
But,
only bought a house. Well, your first home purchase, the condo you're in now, was what, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years?
Correct. A year and a half. Well, not even, what am I saying, a half? A year, actually. A year and a month. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so a lot of it was fear. You know, I'm being by myself, and I didn't have, like I said, I'm a teacher, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to handle it. So I saved and, you know, put stuff away and was advised how to put things away and so forth. So when I was comfortable enough, I did it. So I don't regret doing it. I just regret probably, you know, having waited so late. So that probably would have been one of the biggest things I would have changed if I had to.
And you mentioned about getting advice and having gotten some good advice along the way, helping you make good decisions. Can you tell me, thinking again about when you were younger, what did you learn about money growing up?
That's funny. I remember distinctly when I was a little girl and I would see my mother go to the store and she pull out a credit card and get something. I was like, oh, is that all? You just need a card. You didn't need no money. You know, I thought the card was money. So let's just do this. I'm like, Mommy, pull your card out. Why can't we get it? Because you have a card. So finally one day she sat me down at the table. I must have been an early 12 or so.
Okay.
And she sat me down at the table. And she said, okay, let me explain something to you. The card is not money. And she showed me the bills. Say, okay, we have to pay this bill. We have to pay the phone bill. We have to pay the electricity. She showed me all the bills, and she added them up. She showed me what the check was that she got. She did the math right there for me and showed me what. After that, I never asked for much of anything else. I understood.
So your memories of this are pretty vivid, huh?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. She showed me what that bill, what the credit card bill. She said, this is what I get. It's not money. So, in other words, she explained the process to me so that at an early enough age where now I knew, oh, boy. So I remember that vividly.
It's funny you say that because studies show that when you use a credit card, on average, you spend 17% more than if you're paying for cash. And there's a psychological element to this, actually, how the brain works, because, and this ties in a little to what you're saying, is that if I go to the store and I actually have to physically hand over cash, I give them the cash, they give me the goods, and then there's the trade, but I don't have the money anymore. I actually had to give over the money. When you use a credit card, you spend 17% more on average, but it makes sense. Just like the 12-year-old Harriett, you give them the credit card, you get the goods, and they give you the credit card back. What a fantastic scenario. But what you learned from your mom at an early age, unfortunately, many people still haven't figured out the discipline part of this financial arrangement, that it is money, it is debt actually, that needs to be paid, and you need to be careful with it because, unfortunately, lots of Americans have an obscene amount of credit card debt and spend well above their means, preventing them from achieving financial success. So that's a great story. Other than your mom, who I imagine is tremendously influential, well, actually, let's stay on your mom for a moment. I'm going to change mid-sentence. What else did you learn from your mom about money? It must have been difficult for her being a single mom. It's common today, as it was when you were growing up. What else did you learn from your mom?
Well, also I learned the importance of saving and I mean, my first job I got, she said, she told me, she said, now, don't spend it all. She helped me. She said, let's try to put a good percent, she showed me. And I think I made in that check maybe $300. I think I tried to save at least 200 of it or 250. I can't remember, but it was a good chunk of it.
Okay.
And so that was one of the things. And she also taught me tithing. We go to church and giving that 10% back and so forth. She explained, if you make $1, you give 10 cents to the church. If you make $10, you give $1 to the church. I learned. I still do that to this day, and making contributions to other organizations. She showed me that she did that too. So I kind of followed in her footsteps with that, with certain organizations like Red Cross and Feed. Is it Feed America? I think that's the one. And the Connecticut Food Bank, those are my favorite ones because I have a problem with the waste that we have in this country with food. So I would definitely donate to those. And it's funny, if I waste food, if I do something wasteful at home, I would give more to Feed America.
Yeah.
As a turnaround. But
two things. I didn't realize that you consistently have tithed all these years that we've known each other. So that comes as a surprise. I'm very impressed. And secondly, I just read an article that it is estimated that a third of the food in America ends up being thrown out and not consumed, which is really a huge number. I mean, that's a crazy big number.
That's obscene. It really is obscene. I've seen food. I go in the store, and I remember there was, in Stop and Shop, there was Dunkin' Donuts, and I was coming through, and I was coming down the aisle, and I looked, and I saw him taking the donuts off the rack, and I said, I just happened to ask, what are you going to do with those donuts? We got to get rid of them because it's so-and-so time. I said, you can't give them away or anything? No. I think there's something wrong with the laws in this country.
Yes.
Where, you can't give this food away to somebody that's hungry.
You bring up a good point. Switching gears a bit, we joked at the beginning, about you moving towards retirement, and one of the perks of being a teacher, unlike many professions and careers in this country today, you're part of a very strong pension system, especially in the state of Connecticut. What's your views on having a pension? Like, I don't have a pension. The majority of my clients, Harriett, do not have a pension. And younger workers, unless you're a teacher or a government employee, typically you're going to be in some type of 401k system and not a pension system. How much confidence does that give you in thinking out a bit as you move to retirement, the fact that you are eligible for a very worthwhile pension?
Well, as long as they don't bother it,
yeah.
I feel very good, I feel very good about being a part of that pension plan, especially since we don't collect Social Security like you all do.
Yes.
Teachers, and we're not into the Social Security system, so that pension helps to subsidize that. And like I said before earlier, being a part of the 403B program, I got highly recommended to do by some colleagues. When I first started teaching in '87, I remember some of the seasoned teachers said, if I could turn back the hands of time and start right where you are right now, I would have started mine early. So they advised me, start it early. Even if you don't do anything but $50, just put it in there. And just every time you get a raise, increase it. You'll be fine,
Yeah.
So I listen. I'm a very good listener. When
you are.
To,
you definitely are, and that's some good advice. Now let me ask you. In the school system now, You've been at it for a while, right? Because 1987 was a bit ago. Are you the seasoned teacher now that
Yes.
tries to influence new, younger teachers that are entering into the school system?
Oh, yes, that's mine. Yes, it is. It is definitely my goal. If somebody comes in, I definitely recommend that.
Are they as good of a listener as you were? You know, sometimes you hear, and I think it's American tradition where you think little of the younger generations. But do you think that they're receptive to the message, and do you believe that younger individuals are as good with money as you and your generation were entering the workforce in the mid to late 80s?
Some are, but I find that it's kind of hard. It's a little harder to convince them. It seems like this group has a little harder time saving for some reason. I don't know what it is, but now I'll tell you who is good is my godson. Now he's good, and I'll tell you, he will tell anybody. I watched my Aunt Hat. That's what he calls me.
Yeah.
And I saw how she, was able to take care of herself, and at the same time was able to help me in school, and and she was able to succeed and stay in her career and blah 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 blah. So
you've had a big influence on him.
Oh yes, he's actually my beneficiary too, and I trust him wholeheartedly.
Yes.
So definitely. Oh yeah.
And he became a father not too long ago, right?
Oh yes, he's a daddy. I'm so proud of him. Yes. And the baby is gorgeous. But anyway, he's good. They're trying to. Matter of fact, I went to visit him Christmas, and his wife wanted to buy something, not overly extravagant, but let's get this a sale, for the baby. It was really for the baby. Nope, Leslie, nope, we don't need that right now. I was like, oh boy, I hope I didn't make him a miser.
Well, yeah, it's funny you said, because you do have to strike the balance, because you do want to live and enjoy your life, and carpe diem, seize the day.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to balance that with building a future, because you also don't want to get to retirement age and not be able to retire, or to retire and not be able to live the life you want to live, or not be better off down the line than you are today. But you can take it to the extreme, where you don't get to enjoy your money, but you can strike a balance. Most people, most of the time, seems to me, based on my 27 years as a financial planner, can strike a balance between building wealth, achieving financial goals, preparing for the future, protecting yourself from a rainy day, while still finding ample opportunities to enjoy money, travel, have a nice car, give to charity, all of those things.
And I've been able to do all of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think?
I've been on my little cruises. I've been on my little trips, here and there. But I haven't gone. Some I had to say no to, and some I said yes to. So.
Now, do you find, now that you're in your mid-50s, moving towards retirement, do you find that your views on money are different than maybe they were a little bit ago, now that you're closing in on full pension age and that kind of thing? Do you sense any changes in your views on money?
Well, really, I don't think so, because I've been pretty consistent most of my working years. I'm a very disciplined person.
You are.
So, I am, and so I don't think I have really turned a sharp corner anywhere. I'm thinking maybe now more. I do this. I do check a little bit more, see how things are doing. More than I probably did back in the day.
Okay.
You start your 403, you just let it sit there. Okay, it's growing. Now I might have a tendency. Let me check that balance. Let me see where I am. Like for case in point, when I was going to buy the house, and the market was doing some crazy things, and I was like, oh boy, I need that money that's in that little account. Oh gosh, take it out, But before I was just letting it sit there. Okay, I lost some, I'll get it back. Now I'm like, wait a minute. So in that way, I guess it's a little different.
And Harriet, in thinking about retirement, and I know it's not imminent, but how will you decide when it's time to retire? Because you're young, you're healthy, you're in a career where you can have longevity. It's not as if it's a physically demanding job like working, in the mines or something like that. So how do you think you'll approach determining when the time is right for you to retire from the public school system?
Every time I talk to somebody about that, I remember talking to my mom. I used to ask, Mom, when are you going to retire? I don't know. The year 2000, she said, this is it. I said, how do you know? She said, I just know. And most of the people that I talk to that are retired said, you will know. You will know. It's not just like, okay, when I'm 37, it's done. No, I might get there and say, I can do another year. But if I feel it, so I plan to just do it as long as I can, as long as I still have the desire and the passion for it. When I lose that, then it's time to go. When I see myself not wanting to come in, dreading coming in or dreading certain things, then it's time to stop, so I'm not willing to do the best I can for the kids, of course,
Sure.
But now, I think I got a couple of more years to go.
well, I think that's a great answer. But, in my profession, I feel like we do noble work. And how this ties into your answer is that if somebody gets to the point, and let's use a teacher as an example, but I think it works very well for other careers and professions as well, is if you get to the point where you say, all right, my calling has changed. I don't have the passion. Could be physical, could be emotional, could be just changes in curriculum and school, whatever. You decide, all right, I think it's time. If you don't have financially the resources to retire, then you're going to make a decision that's more based on money than really what you want to do. And that would be an unfortunate outcome for someone that spent a whole career and might not be able to walk away because of financial pressures. You could see how that works, right?
Yeah, because I know some people that continue to work because they can't afford health care, or they can't afford,
Yes.
They get things on their job, they can't afford not to work, and that's when it becomes a sad situation.
Yeah, and you led me right to what I was going to say. In the case of teachers, as a citizen with children that are, one my daughter's in college now, but my son's a public school student, and it would be a shame if a child was in a classroom with someone that did lose their passion and was not really interested in the career, but was there simply because they couldn't afford to leave, because that doesn't seem like that's good for not just the teacher, but the school system, and most importantly, the children. And the way to overcome that is to have individuals that are good with money, they win with money, they increase wealth over time, so they have options when the time comes that aren't driven solely by, boy, I need the paycheck, even though I hate this, I can't do anything else, because that's not a good outcome for anybody.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's challenging. And I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't some days when let's case in point. Tomorrow is supposed to be bad weather. Now, if it was a snow day, I'd be the first one to yell and scream and shout, "Thank you, God!" I can stay home.
So it's not just kids that do that; it's teachers too.
Are you kidding? Yes, are you kidding? But at the same time, I would hate to be absent for my kids. I remember when I had to go and take care of my mom and leave them here. I was on the phone. How they doing on their projects? How they, do they have a decent sub? Are they working on? And they kept fussing at me. Would you just don't worry about here? We got it here. You take care of your mom, because that's where my heart was with my kids,
Sure.
So, yeah.
I understand. Let me ask you this, Harriet, and it wasn't part of the original outline, in preparation for today's discussion. I had jotted down some notes and thoughts and questions, and this wasn't included, but I'm curious because you've made good decisions with money, and you've sought out help, and you've been consistent, like you said, getting some good advice and being a good listener back in 1987. But you are a music teacher, right?
Correct.
So you're a creative type, unlike me, who's not a creative type. You don't want me playing any instruments for you. I could barely play the radio by myself. So, you're not the classic person that is going to want to read financial magazines or read investment prospectus and things like that. Yet, despite the fact that you're more of an artistic, creative, musical person, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to financial education, but you've managed over these many years to survive and thrive financially. How did you cross that bridge? Because you're not curious like investments like I am, being a financial geek.
Listen, it goes back to like I said, it started with my mother showing me what I had to do to maintain a household, and then also, like I said, being single, being only child, knowing I have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
That had a lot to do with it, and that pretty much. Knowing that there was no other income or no other source.
Right.
Because when my mother passed, I had no idea. I even told her, I said, I hope you're enjoying your retirement and using your money and not trying to, leave a whole lot to me, because I want you to enjoy retirement,
Sure.
But, she did have a 403B that I inherited. And, I think about that. I said, and every time I would look at that, I said, I really hope that whatever she had as far as her pension and whatever she was getting, that she enjoyed her retirement, because I don't think she did what she wanted to do.
No, I think that's good. On that note, as we kind of wrap up, Harriet, you said you were disciplined, and I've seen that over these many, many years as we've talked about these things. So I don't think you're a free spender, but could you share with my listeners maybe something that you do splurge on?
You mean on a regular or a half splurge?
I don't know. I'll leave it up to you.
I'm not a big splurger. A cruise that I went on. I just always wanted to go, and I said, I'm going. And they had a ball. I'm ready to go on another one. But it's not a regular thing where I splurge real big or on anything. But every now and then I might treat myself on some little niceties here and there.
Very good. Well, thanks for spending a few minutes with me.
Okay.
Listeners, you could get more information about me and my firm, Elliott Wealth Management, by going to www.elliottwealth.com. You could sign up for an initial consultation if you're not a client already. And I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done so already. And I will be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon. Thanks for listening.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of the information provided at these websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management, LLC, not affiliated with SagePoint Financial.